Hello students, this is Tulika Banerjee from Forensic Science Unit, SGTB Khalsa College, University of Delhi, presenting this module on behalf of Professor Nisar Ahmed, PBGM College, Bhopal. Today I am going to discuss a realistic topic on socio-political changes and crime in India. This is part of your curriculum and taught in BA first semester. So let us start our discussion with the introduction of this topic. Current social changes have been determined primarily by revolutionary achievements in science and technology, advances in telecommunications, traffic facilities, the production of weapons of mass destruction, and improvement in the means of production require new structural and ideological forms for human coexistence. Rapid technological development is changing economic and cultural structures. Social changes that particularly influence crime patterns are the development of an international economy and cooperation, the weakening of centralized state control, the growth of privatization, and the intensification of social inequalities. Crime is increasing in the midst of social change, due largely to injustices in social conditions, misconceived ideologies, the lack of appropriate knowledge, the abuse of alcohol and other drugs, disorganized communities, and inadequate crime control policies and structures. Policing in the midst of social change and increasing crime requires cooperation between the police and communities to address criminogenic conditions, mount community-wide efforts against criminal behavior, and reinforce the norms of law-abiding behavior. Crime control policy must focus not only on a retributive response to crime after it happens, but also on the forging of policies designed to prevent crime and develop structures for learning law-abiding behaviors. In this chapter, we shall explain our topic with the help of following modules. First, we have socio-political changes. Second, factors influencing crime. And third, conclusion. Dear students, through introduction, I have laid the foundation for this topic. Now, I will end this module and we shall discuss our next module, which will be based on socio-political changes. Hello students, welcome back to our discussion. Now, I am about to discuss the social changes in India. Let us begin our module. The abstract idea of social change evinces dimension of some of the characteristics of a group of people. If any action which affects a group of people who shared values or characteristics can also be said as social change. Generally, the change in existing pattern of social life is known as social change. Society and social conditions never remain static. Generally, social change is to be understood as change in social structure. According to Gainsbourg, social change is change in social structure. Example, the size of a society, the composition or balance or its part or the type of its organization. According to Jones, social change devotes variation in or modification of any aspect of social process, social patterns, social interaction or social organization. Davis observed that social change is large number of persons engaging in activities that differ from those which their immediate forefathers engaged in some time before. According to Anderson and Parker, social change involved alteration and structure or functioning of forms or processes themselves. Social change means there must be a change in social structure. Social structure, which can be understood as nature, social behavior, social relations, social organizations, community of people. Social change is change in the social order. According to Charles L. Harper, significant alteration of social structure and cultural patterns through time has been stated. In this context, I deem it is apt to remember the observation of Dennis R. Fox. Well-meaning efforts by liberal psychologists to reform the law in keeping with values such as dignity, privacy, justice, and equality are often misguided because law exists to serve the status quo. Law inhibits the systemic, radical social change necessary for psychological and societal well-being. It does so through coercive power, substantive assumptions about human nature, the ideology of law's legitimacy, a preoccupation with procedure rather than substance, a focus on rational technicality rather than equity, and encouragement for limited, self-defeating legal solutions. Psychological scholars should arouse public dissatisfaction with law and assist social movements seeking to overcome legal impediments to social change. Students, I would like to introduce the theories of social change here. The theories of social change are: first is linear theory of social change, second, cyclic theory of social change. Let us now look at the key elements of social change. The word social change is used in history, politics, economics, and sociology. Social change is also an issue in social work, political science, history, sociology, anthropology, and in many social sciences. Social change is being created by revolution, protest, politics, communities, and by direct action. Elements of social change can be separated as: first, physical or geographical, then biological, third, economic, fourth, cultural, fifth, psychological, sixth, technical, and the last one as population. Anthony Giddens observed social change as infra. Sociology was born of the transformations that wrenched the industrializing social order of the West away from the ways of life characteristic of preceding societies. The world that was created by these changes is the primary object of concern of sociological analysis. The pace of social change has continued to accelerate, and it is possible that we stand on the threshold of transitions as significant as those that occurred in the late 18th and 19th centuries. Our next section is law as a means of social control. The twofold objectives of law are: firstly, to keep up stability and afford orderly life in the society; secondly, to persuade social change by changing itself according to the needs of the changing society. This law is an important agency of social control. The society supervenes the law for bettermost socialization. Rule of law is any constitution is the bedrock for democracy. By putting fear in the minds of public, the law is a helpful agency for social control. Law regulates the behavior of the people in society. Law, by using force, makes the people conscious about their duties and obligations. Law saves precious and good concepts of the society. the exploitation of the people is curbed through law. The Constitution of India, criminal, civil laws and other statutes are designed to surmount this goal. Our next section is based on law as an instrument of social change. To understand the social change through law and legal system, it is pertinent to understand that the working of legal system in the light of political, social, economic perspectives, which can be seen in the Constitution of India. Law is a mirror to know how people relate to one another, their values, what they consider worth preserving in life, and how they define their own security. Next section is law and public opinion. The law, which is molded through public opinion, is thus the result of state action in accordance with the public opinion. Here it is necessary to remember that when Rajiv Gandhi government wanted to bring defamation bill because of the opposition to the bill in the public, the government dropped the idea. The public opinion is a reflection of the people's will. Public opinion becomes law. We have discussed law as a means of social control. Our next topic of discussion will be social change and the Constitution of India. Preamble is the key to open the statute and consists of the sources and objectives of the statute. Literally, preamble means preliminary statement in writing or in speech or an introductory part of the statute. The word pre means before and amble means walk. Thus, it is known the word preamble means before walk. The preambular declaration provides that we the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic and justice, social, economic and political liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith and worship, equality of status and of opportunity, and to promote among them all fraternity, assuring the dignity of the individual and the unity and integrity of the nation. The Supreme Court of India in Berubari's case in 1969 observed that preamble is not a part of the Constitution and hence the Parliament has no power to amend the preamble. Later in Kesabnanda Bharti versus State of Kerala in 1973, the court held that there is no wrong in treating preamble as a part of Constitution. Dear students, in this module we have learned about social factors, law as a means of social control and social change, and the Constitution of India. I'll end this module now and we shall meet again to discuss factors influencing crime in our next module. Students, after learning about the socio-political factors, we will now study how these factors influence crime. Let's begin our discussion. Several factors influence the incidence of crime and violence. These include economic and political circumstances that produce opportunities and incentives for criminal behavior and violent acts, as well as the situations that frame victimization. Social and cultural factors also exacerbate or mediate crime. For instance, in cities such as Kabul, Karachi and Managua, violence is so interwoven into the fabric of daily life that it has become the norm for many slum dwellers. On the other hand, in Hong Kong and other parts of East and Southeast Asia, Confucianism based family values and a general compliant, pro-social population is major factors in keeping crime and violence low. Other factors associated with urban crime and violence include poverty, unemployment, inequality, intergenerational transmission of violence as reflected in the continuous witnessing of parental abuse during childhood, the rapid pace of urbanization, poor urban planning, design and management, growth in youthful population, and the concentration of political power, which facilitates corruption and city size and density. Poverty is an important factor associated with increased crime and violence. While crime may be seen as a survival alternative in the face of grinding poverty, there are poor communities where crime levels are low because behavior is constrained by informal social and cultural values. Inequality may be a more important underlying factor in the perpetration of crime and violence than poverty per se. Unemployment is a fundamental issue related to crime and violence rates among young people. The World Bank estimates that 74 million people between the ages of 15 and 24 are unemployed, which accounts for 41% of all unemployed persons. Most research suggests that unemployed youths are disproportionately more likely to be perpetrators as well as victims of crime and violence. The growing gap between the richest and the poorest members of society is as important as or even more important than levels of poverty in affecting crime and violence. Closely associated with inequality are key exclusionary factors relating to unequal access to employment, education, health and basic infrastructure. The transition towards political democratization has been cited as a cause for increased violent crimes. Reporting on observed trends in 44 most industrialized countries over a 50-year period, research indicates that global homicide rates have grown at about the same time as there have been significant increases in political democratization. Evidence to support this contention comes from researchers tracking significantly increased homicides in Latin America following widespread democratization of the region during the 1990s. The speed of urbanization is significantly associated with increased crime rates in some of the world's regions. For instance, results from a survey of 17 Latin American countries indicate that households located in areas experiencing high levels of growth are more likely to be victimized than those in communities with a stable population. Rapid development places increased pressures on the ability of authorities to meet public security and safety demands. The link between crime and city size in developing countries can be explained by three factors. First, returns on crime are likely to be higher in larger cities due to the greater concentration of wealthier victims, more opportunities to commit various types of crime, and a more developed second-hand market for the disposal of stolen items. Second, the chances of arresting a criminal might be lower in larger cities because large cities spend less on law enforcement per capita or have lower levels of community cooperation with the police or require more police officers per inhabitant to effect an arrest. Finally, larger cities have a greater proportion of crime-prone individuals or potential criminals. Poor urban planning, design and management have increasingly been cited as playing a role in the shaping of urban environments that put citizens and property at risk. Thus, the physical fabric and layout of cities have a bearing on the routine movements of offenders and victims and on opportunities for crime. It has been estimated that 10 to 15% of crimes have environmental design and management components. Surveys show that conditions supporting the growth of organized crime, such as globalization of markets and increasingly sophisticated communications technology, are not likely to diminish in the near future. Closely related to globalization is the deportation of criminals to their countries of origin. This phenomenon, which is common in Latin America and the Caribbean, where offenders are deported from the US, partially accounts for increasing levels of youth crime and gang-related activities in the region. This has resulted in the transfer of gang wars from the ghettos of Los Angeles to the streets of Latin America and Jamaica. A wealth of international data suggests that crime and violence are strongly associated with the growth and proportion of youthful populations and especially young males. Cross-national research using data on 44 countries from 950 to 2000 reveals the percentage of young people in the populations and their level of prosperity are jointly more important in explaining the variability of homicide. Crime and politics have had a very close nexus the world over, but in India, this trend became dominant and struck deep roots in mid-60s when the Indian National Congress, the country's oldest party, started losing its sway over the electorate. The missionary zeal of the freedom movement came to be replaced by unbridled ambition of power. Value-based approach to politics made way to cozy, comfortable and practical paths to power. All political parties, without exception, indulged in power game as more and more players entered the electoral arena. Money, muscle and media became the tools of individual political leaders initially. With the passage of time, the political system was gradually overtaken by these three elements. In the naked pursuit of power, political parties and leaders readily accepted these elements as crime and criminals ensured electoral victory for them and their candidates. First, political parties and leaders used crime and criminals to come to power slowly, but quickly equation started changing as criminals did not remain content playing second fiddle. Relationship between crime and politics came into the open and criminals demanded their share in power. While by the mid-70s, every single party had caught up with the growing criminalization phenomenon, by the beginning of the 90s, this trend grew rapidly as more regional and caste-based parties struck roots. Successive parliamentary and state assembly elections increased the representation of criminals in legislatures. In the 15th Lok Sabha, 162 MPs had pending criminal charges against them. These cases involved a diverse array of charges ranging from mischief to murder. If one were to focus only on serious crimes such as murder, kidnapping and physical assault, approximately 14% or 76 MPs faced pending cases. In the state assembly, 1 in 3 MLAs has a criminal case, amounting to 31% of the MLAs having at least one criminal case against them. Again, about half of them, roughly 15% of the total, face serious charges. There has been no systematic analysis of the panchayats and urban local bodies, but there is evidence that local tiers of governance are hardly free from criminal elements. The Association for Democratic Reforms, or ADR, has done considerable research in this field and has collected extensive data on crime and politics. According to ADR data, 17% and 21% of municipal corporators in Mumbai and Delhi respectively have declared involvement in criminal cases. Another key factor that encourages crime is greater chances of winning. A close analysis of recent elections tells us that a criminal has greater chances of winning the electoral battle over a person with a clean and sober background. Data of the last two general elections gives solid evidence that it is relatively easier for a lawbreaker to become a lawmaker. Since tough and rough criminals have greater chances of winning the election and thus bring a political party closer to power, they are preferred over others. The real question is what makes these candidates winnable? Apart from other factors, one of the dominant reasons is money or hard cash. Criminals easily generate black money through smuggling of arms, drug trafficking, or trade in narcotics, women trafficking, and other similar illegal acts. It is a combination of money and muscle that makes them win. Once elected, these criminal leaders get sort of immunity as law enforcing agencies hesitate to book them for alleged crimes. The hold of crime over politics has been growing. While in the 2004 general election, the Lok Sabha had 24% MPs with criminal background, this figure went up to 30% in 2009. The increasing trend had started drawing attention of the government in 90s, and a committee under former Home Secretary N.N. Vohra was set up, which submitted its report in the year 1993. Studying the problem of criminalization of politics and nexus among criminals, politicians and bureaucrats, the committee pointed out those criminal networks were running parallel governments in several parts of the country. In his address to a joint sitting of Parliament on the Golden Jubilee of Independence, August 15, 1997, then President K.R. Narayanan said, "Sheer opportunism and valueless power politics have taken over the place of principles and idealism, relationships between people, groups and parties, and corruption is corroding the vitals of our politics and our society. It seems the people have to be in the forefront of the fight against corruption, communalism, castes and criminalization of politics and life in the country." Even the Election Commission and the Supreme Court have taken cognizance of the serious problems of criminalization of politics, but piecemeal efforts have failed to make a serious dent. But despite several reports and attention of the Election Commission and the highest court of the land, the situation has continued to deteriorate. Governments and the political parties have only paid lip service to the threat, and nothing concrete or very little has been done so far. In this period, almost all political parties have been in power, but precious little has been done to address the problem which has been eating away the very vitals of the democracy. Undoubtedly, people, particularly the growing middle class, are becoming more alarmed at the trend, and public opinion has been vocal in recent years, giving rise to civil society movements. The electoral success of the Aam Aadmi Party, or AAP, in the year 2013 assembly elections in Delhi was one such evidence of the deep-rooted popular desire to break the nexus between crime and politics. Political parties and leaders are coming under popular pressure, but unfortunately, the failure of the political class to rise above partisan interests is proving to be a serious hurdle on the way to overhauling of the entire electoral system. In democracy, only people can force political parties and leaders to take the necessary steps to end the sway of crime and politics. In coming weeks, the electorate needs to send a clear signal by defeating criminals and throwing such bad elements out of the political system that political parties are forced to put an effective system in place to ensure that such elements never return again to electoral arena. The number of criminals has been growing all these years, and hopefully the 16th Lok Sabha proves to be the beginning of the end of crime in politics. Students, we have learned about the key factors affecting crime in India. With this module, we have fulfilled the objectives of this chapter. It's time to end the module, and in the next module, we will conclude our lecture. Dear students, in previous modules, we have learned about the relationship between socio-political changes and crime. It's time now to conclude our lecture. A system's perspective must acknowledge that social problems are interconnected rather than isolated. People should be advocates for radical perspectives, defensible on both psychological and political grounds, in keeping with values such as dignity, autonomy, equality and justice. Socialization is a process during which people learn to expect from the world and what the world expects from them. It has been defined as the process of learning to live in human society, or the process by which human behavior is learned and maintained. Thus, a person who is socialized has acquired a basic minimum knowledge about the society he or she lives in and a number of its basic attitudes, norms and values. People gradually form of its basic attitudes that can help to govern their attention. People become socialized to family living, to politics, to academic life and so on. The growth of crime and deviance and its accelerating momentum is an undeniable worldwide phenomenon. A glance at the statistics on crime in different countries, allowing all omissions and errors, proves this hypothesis and speaks for its pervasive and persistent increasing trend. Increasing rates of criminality disrupt the economic and social processes, threaten social welfare systems and impair the quality of life of average citizens. Moreover, crime has an adverse effect on a country's economy, diverting assets and reducing productivity. Also, various new forms of crime have emerged. Development and crime have been together. More development means more laws of their violation, greater standards of materialism, desire for money towards unlawful activities. In today's developed world, greater is more insecurity in the urban environments, more found to grow, so more chances of living, greater tendencies of competitiveness, aggressiveness. The degree of criminality seems to be linked directly to the technological, cultural advancement and economic prosperity of the nation. A perplexing and major concern of all societies today, uninhibited growth of crime, whereby this phenomenon could become abnormal and dysfunctional. Dear students, our today's topic on socio-political changes in crime has come to an end. I hope you all have understood the underlying concepts of this chapter. Do keep in mind what we discussed today. I'll be back with one more lecture in this series. If you want to learn more and enhance your knowledge, you may log on to our website www.cec.nic.in for MCQs, quizzes, LORs, etc. Make sure you revise the modules frequently so that you master the topic well and take up the exercises. Thank you for your time today. Do review the complete chapter as and when needed. Till we meet next, goodbye.